The Dodgers made a roster move, and Jason Heyward has been designated for assignment. We talked about it. Jason Heyward being the move. We didn't know they would actually designate him for assignment. Let's get all into it. Let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com is a reliable way to get parts fast. Shop for your next plumbing, HVAC, or electrical job. You get fast shipping from coast to coast at SupplyHouse.com. This is a daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. And you can make it easier on yourself by subscribing and be notified when our episodes are ready or when we're going live like we are here on Thursday evening. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers, and you can subscribe wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. If this is your first time listening or watching, welcome. My name is Vince Samperio, joined by Jeff Snyder, my co-host. Jeff and I are both lifelong Dodger fans. I've been covering the team since 2014 in a few different ways. One of those ways being this year podcast that we've been doing since 2019, every Monday through Friday since 2019. So a lot of Dodger talk. We've been around the Dodgers a lot, and we're here to just talk about the Dodgers and hopefully make everyone better Dodger fans in the process, including ourselves. And Jeff, we thought maybe we were going to get through the day without any big Dodger news since they didn't really have to make the move until Friday, but we got news on Thursday that the Dodgers designated Jason Heyward for assignment. They officially added Chris Taylor back to the 26-man roster. And while it's not surprised that Jason Heyward is the odd man out, I think a lot of people, maybe not me, but a lot of people are surprised of, one, how it was done, and two, of the timing.
Yeah, we've talked a lot here about how Heyward probably wasn't going to make the postseason roster, just looking at how everything lined up. But we kind of expected him to get the month of September to battle for that and try to make his case. And ultimately they didn't do that, which means, a couple things that it means to me. One is that they had already decided. They have seen enough to know, which makes sense because not like Jason Heyward or Kevin Kiermaier are unknown commodities. We know exactly what each brings to the table, and the Dodgers decided that Kiermaier's skill set is what they're looking for in the postseason. Specifically, I think really the clincher was probably when Mookie Betts moved back to right field, because right field is the one position that Jason Heyward plays. Yes, he's played some center. I'm sure he could play left, but he's a right fielder, and the Dodgers don't need another right fielder because Mookie Betts will be playing every day in the postseason. So then it starts to be who brings what skills off the bench. Kiermaier better defensively, runs faster, better bunter, all the things you might be looking for in a guy coming off the bench. And so it makes sense. One of the things that I kind of want to address right here at the top, though, is, in my opinion, this move, other than the fact that they were announced at the same time, really has nothing to do with Chris Taylor. Yes, Chris Taylor's who they needed the roster spot for today, but this wasn't a case of they chose Taylor over Heyward. This was a case of Taylor was always going to come back. Chris Taylor, for one thing, he was hitting really well the 6 weeks before he got hurt. He had an 830 OPS the last 6 weeks before he got hurt. And so throw in his defensive versatility, there's actually a chance that he could provide some value. Also, the Dodgers owe him $17 million after this year. And so it was very unlikely that they were just going to say, hey, we know you're healthy now and you were playing well and we are paying you for the next 2 years, but you're off the team. So he was always going to come back. The question was, how were they going to make room for him? And the reason it was Heyward was because what I was saying before, that they've made the decision that Kiermaier is going to make the postseason roster over Heyward. Other than that, they're not connected at all. They were never going to be competing with each other for a postseason roster spot.
Yeah, and when you break it down, specifically for Jason Heyward, what is the role on this team? It was extra outfielder, pinch hitter. Like, there's not even chance of like, okay, platoon or anything like that. Like Teo's going to play every day. Mookie's going to play every day. And realistically, you're not going to start Heyward in center. It's a spot he can go play, but it's not a job that he's going to play consistently, especially, when Kiermaier plays it a lot better. And, hitting wise, if you go by small sample sizes, Kiermaier's been better of late. Heyward brings the one thing he has over, different people is the power. And yes, game-changing swings. It might be a moment where we come in October where we're like, man, if Jason Heyward was up to play right now, like we might feel a little bit better. But even with that, like even counting that home run the other night, he's been bad for a while now. Over his last 85 at-bats, he's hitting 176 with an OPS under 550. Just one other home run besides that home run he hit the other night. And, 19 strikeouts. It's not like he was doing anything worthy of being on the roster. And if he hadn't hit that homer the other day, I don't even think there'd be any real questions about this move today. But, obviously that did buy him some grace in some people's eyes. But even when you Kiermaier, you can count different ways what he brings to the team. If you wanted to pit him against Chris Taylor, and different ways, that helps the team. Like Chris Taylor is more versatile, obviously defensively. And the other part is, people talk about Taylor and everything else, but so the report is that he's changed his swing since he's been hurt, and that it's looking to get back to what it was before. Does that mean he's going to be what he was? No, but does it mean he's going to be better? We can't say for sure, but the Dodgers are going to give him that runway. And I think with the extra roster spot coming up in September, the battle starts. It's going to be Kike, it's going to be Taylor, it's going to be Pages, most likely, probably fighting for two spots for those three guys. Realistically, I think Kiermaier at this point, the fact that they're keeping him beyond this certain point pretty much means unless he hits 0 hits the next month, 5 weeks or whatever, he's going to be on the roster.
Yeah, I see a comment in the chat about nostalgia, that the Dodgers are obsessed with Chris Taylor nostalgia. I think, if anything, what this move today shows us that they're not going to let sentimentality get in the way of putting out the best team possible for the postseason, because how much more sentimentality is there than Jason Heyward, veteran leadership, hit a game-winning homer just 2 days ago, all that stuff, all the Freddie Freeman's best friend, yeah. All the emotions are in favor of keeping Jason Heyward on the team. And they made the move that's best for baseball. And so if Chris Taylor doesn't earn a spot on the postseason roster, he's not going to be on the postseason roster. If Chris Taylor hits in September the way he hit in April and May, he is not going to be on the postseason roster. There's nothing about sentimentality or nostalgia or anything. The Dodgers are trying to win a World Series. They're trying to put together the best team possible. But Taylor has absolutely earned the right with his 6 weeks of play before he got hurt to try to earn that postseason spot. And that's the thing. This doesn't mean he's on the postseason roster. Doesn't even mean he's, if the season ended today, he'd be on the postseason roster. It means he's earned a chance to try to earn that spot.
Yeah. And I think the biggest question of the roster situation, and it has some validity, is just the handedness. Like, okay, now if Kiermaier's not starting, then he's your only left-handed bat off the bench. But realistically, the way the Dodgers are set up this year is not to really rely on that. Like, there's no real platoon guys out there. Like, Gavin Lux is probably the biggest platoon player. And other than that, everyone else is going to play their spot pretty much every day. And you're not really going to be looking to take someone out specifically for one at-bat unless it's like the bottom of the ninth inning and you're losing or something like that. So I think – overall, regardless of what it means for the rest of the roster, Jason Heyward didn't really have a role on this team moving forward other than getting 1 or 2 at-bats a week in a situation and maybe an occasional start here and there. Because, people are kind of also asking, like, why not just wait till September 1st and then, make that decision then? But that means you're going to sit a healthy Chris Taylor for a week or tell Rojas to rest his hamstring, I guess, for a week, just for Jason Heyward to get like maybe 1 or 2 at-bats, like especially with the day off today. They had day off next week. I think they have another one. Like you're fighting for 2 at-bats from a guy, and he gets out in those 2 at-bats, oh, yeah, we sat someone for 10 extra days so we could see two outs getting made. So it's, everyone's going to have different feelings about it, but I think the Dodgers made the right move in the sense of keeping everything ready moving forward. The one thought I did have about handedness, and I'll bring this up in a little bit after this, but I had one thought that, maybe they could make a surprise move here when rosters expand. So we'll get into that. Make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Liquid IV. It is still the summer right now, and it's still pretty warm outside, and you might be cooling down with some nice frozen treats. Maybe even a popsicle gets in there for you. But if you want to also hydrate and with something that tastes like a popsicle, you can do that with Liquid IV because they got their popsicle firecracker flavor, which is perfect for the summer. And not only does it taste great, but it gets you hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powdered hydration brand in America. Baseball and summer go together like Liquid IV and indulgent hydration. If you are someone that isn't a big fan of water, maybe you don't like water, whether it's cold, whether it's room temp, whatever, but you want to be hydrated because that is something that's very important these days, you can get yourself some Liquid IV and get all the benefits of water with a little bit more because they have the LIV Hydroscience, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. And they have a bunch of different flavors. There's not just the popsicle flavor, which you can go get. You can check out the other flavors on their website. They got acai berry, lemon, lime, pina colada, and a lot more. Go to liquidiv.com to check those out. Tear, pour, live more with 1 stick and 16 ounces of water that hydrates you better than water alone, and 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, 8 essential vitamins and nutrients, and it's always non-GMO, gluten-free, vegan, dairy-free, and soy-free. So no more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order at Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. Today's episode was also brought to you by SupplyHouse. Order supplies from the website that's made for the skilled trades. Find thousands of parts from hundreds of brands in just a couple clicks at SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com gives you 24/7 access to a huge selection of plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with fast delivery anywhere in the U.S. If you need help with an order, get industry-leading after-sales services from their friendly and knowledgeable customer support team and talk to a real person every time. And there's great news for plumbers, technicians, and contractors. Being a pro has its perks. Trade industry professionals can join their free Trade Master program for free shipping and serious discounts on every order. Over 100,000 pros already trust the Trade Master program to deliver results. Apply for your membership today and get a competitive edge on every order at supplyhouse.com/TM. Save money and time when you order online. Order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from SupplyHouse.com. Real people, real service. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day, or at least one of your listens during the day, depending when we go live these days. But if you want to eat something else for your other listen of the day, check out Locked On MLB podcast with our friend Paul Sullivan, aka Sully. He's here to provide his national expertise with his trademark humor to help you get ready for the MLB postseason here in the dog days of summer. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day on Locked On MLB, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also part of the Locked On Podcast Network is Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 2 24/7 streaming channels, bringing the biggest news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world. You can check out Locked On Dodgers Postcast with host Pete Fox, available on the Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel, live after most Dodger games and in our audio feed. All right, Jeff. The one thought I did have when people are thinking about the Dodgers, and if you're thinking about a left-handed bat and maybe they don't have anything, is are we so sure, one, that the Dodgers are bringing up just one position player? 2, are we so sure that they might not give Dalton Rushing a chance to at least be on the roster? It would hurt the development for a little bit, obviously for a month of him not getting consistent at-bats, but it would also give you a chance to give him maybe some at-bats here and there and see what he's got and see if, if you're already going to have a lot of guys that can play center field and outfield in general, and you maybe just want a spot for somebody that can come in and hit in a key situation, maybe that's something that could happen. I don't think so, but it just a thought that crossed my mind earlier.
Yeah, it's not crazy. Honestly, I would think Rushing's chances of being on the postseason roster are actually a little higher than his chances of being called up in September. I think that if they were going to call him up just to be a potential bat off the bench, they might rather have him getting those regular at bats in AAA, where he's tearing the cover off the ball since moving up to AAA, hitting really well. But realistically, even if they were considering him for the postseason, I don't think it would be a September 1st thing. Maybe it's if you get to mid-September and you realize, okay, Taylor is bad again, Kike is bad again, and you're looking for, okay, well, let's think outside the box on bench options for the postseason. Then maybe you do start seriously considering Rushing. He's not going to have anywhere to start on the team, obviously, because the only position other than catcher he's really played is left field, and that's where Teoscar Hernandez plays right now. So obviously, barring injury to someone somewhere, he wouldn't really have anywhere to play regularly. But I would guess he's at least on their radar as far as a potential October bat. He's in the organization, and so they don't have to, technically you have to be on the 40-man roster before September 1st to be eligible for the postseason. But there is a loophole so big that you and I could do a 3-legged race through it, Vince, that it's unless you're replacing an injured player. And there's nothing that says when that player has to have been injured. So basically, as long as you have someone on the injured list, all you really need is for the person to be in the organization before September 1st. So Rushing, they could on September 25th decide, okay, we're going to put Dalton Rushing, we're calling him up, and then they can put on the postseason roster and say, oh yeah, he's replacing Dustin May. It doesn't matter, anybody who's hurt. So I don't think they need to I don't think they would consider bringing him up right now, or when rosters expand on September 1st, but I'm sure he's on their radar. That one guy who will get called up almost for sure is Andy Pages. They kind of said that when he got sent down, and the Heyward move opens that up. And so I thought one thing we ought to talk about is the possibility, we've talked, I've had conversations with a few people about it. We talked about Gavin Lux and the fact that he's still not hitting lefties well. And so in the postseason, I wonder if they would consider Andy Pages in right field against a left-handed starting pitcher. Andy Pages in right field, which is the position that he's actually very good at. He's very good defensively in right field. Move Mookie Betts to second base and sit Lux. And so basically you're replacing Lux with Pages. So the two things that Andy Pages has done really well in the big leagues is hit left-handed pitching and play right field. And so that would be an opportunity for him to do those two things. Might be a way for him to actually play a pretty decent sized role on this team in the postseason.
Yeah, that's definitely, it's one of those where they're probably going to try a few different combinations of that, whether it's Mookie playing second and Pages in right, or, Chris Taylor playing second, or whoever, Kike playing, or somebody else playing second against left-handed pitchers. And I'm sure they're going to see, basically go with whoever is producing at the moment and kind of figure it out that way. But yeah, they've talked on the broadcast a little bit about, Mookie and kind of more stuff he's kind of said recently and it was more specifically shortstop of, I forget who it was the other day, but mentioned like if I was in a postseason game and, something that I've never done before, have to do it. Like it seems that's what kept him up at night. And obviously in right field, he doesn't have to do that. He's played games in the infield in the postseason. So at the very least, he probably hasn't done a lot of the things, but he's played there. So I think it'd be a little bit different. So yeah, I think there's a lot of different combinations of the way they can go right now. The good thing is that it's really only second base and then moving a couple other guys here and there where you really have to have those combinations, between center and short is going to be, Kiermaier one day, Rojas one day, and I think they'll just go back and forth with Edman moving in between them just to keep everyone fresh. But yeah, we're at the point now where we're having conversations, like we said the other day, about okay, this major league capable hitter and this major league capable hitter and this major league capable hitter, where do we put them? And those are good conversations to have.
Yeah, I just noticed in the little background graphic I spelled Kevin Kiermaier's name wrong. It says Kevney. What is this? The postcast? No offense, Pete. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I think obviously the biggest takeaway from today is that Kevin Kiermaier is sitting in a really good spot as far as having a chance to make the postseason roster. Of course, even that could change because they do have Tommy Edman. They are calling up Andy Pages, and so they don't necessarily. It doesn't mean that Kiermaier has made the roster for the postseason, but his biggest hurdle, I think, was him or Heyward. The fact that there definitely wasn't room for both him and Heyward on the postseason roster. Going forward, we'll have to see, and some of that does depend on how Kike and Taylor play because their performance will affect at least a little bit what sort of role they're going to need Tommy Edman to play in the postseason. With so many guys playing so many different positions, there's a lot of ways that all these things are interconnected, and that ultimately that multiple position flexibility is one of the big things that costs Jason Heyward because he only plays the one position and it's the one where they have an MVP contender playing. So,
yeah. All right. There are questions when things and roster moves happen, designated for assignment, optioned, released, placed on waivers, all that type of stuff that kind of goes on around this time all season, but around this time as well. So we're going to break it down for you guys. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by TonaI. For those of you that like to get stuff done, there's days are jam-packed these days between whether it's work or school or kids or, Dodger games, listening to Dodger podcasts. There's a lot of things to do, maybe not so much time. And that's what TonaI is here for. It's a smart strength training system that takes the guesswork out of working out so you can make sure you're making the most of every rep. Even the most dedicated gym goers struggle with consistency because there's commutes, there's waiting for weights. If there's people there, there's, the gym's just not a clean place sometimes. And you can very easily talk yourself out of going to the gym. But with TonaI, you can choose from thousands of workouts and train in a way that you actually enjoy at home. TonaI is the world's smartest and most effective strength training system that helps you get stronger. Powered by AI, TonaI leans with every rep so it can deliver workouts personalized just for you. It's like having a personal trainer at home with you, as TonaI will optimize every workout just for you. And unlike traditional gym equipment, TonaI uses adaptive digital weight to advance your training techniques. From professional athletes to the Mama 3, TonaI is trusted by thousands who have become their strongest with TonaI. Right now, TonaI is offering our listeners $200 off your TonaI purchase with promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's TonaI.com and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $200 off your purchase. That's TonaI.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $200 off. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen or your last listen or any listen during the day. We also appreciate you if you're an everydayer because those are people that listen or watch to us every single day. A few of you guys here in the live YouTube chat, I'm sure there's more of you out there listening. And if you want to become an everydayer, all you have to do is just start listening or watching every day. And you can go beyond the podcast, become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You can pay a few bucks a month, get text directly from us with news, updates, thoughts, rumors, anything that kind of happens in the Dodger world. If you're not around to be on social media all day, we got you covered. So make sure to go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers for that. All right, Jeff, like I said, Jason Heyward designated for assignment. We had Brett Honeywell the other day get outrighted to the minors. We've seen other things happen with, Andy Pages was optioned a couple weeks ago. And it's all a matter of roster moves, but some moves are different than others. And reasoning for all this is just to answer some of those questions. And as our resident rules and stats expert, I'll hand the floor to you for this one.
Sounds good. First, let me clarify one thing. What I was saying about Dalton Rushing and just having to be in the organization. And I said he could just replace Dustin May or somebody. And there are a couple of people confused in the in the comments, I didn't mean wouldn't be replacing Dustin May on the postseason roster. Dustin May is not going to be on the postseason roster. That's kind of why I used him as an example of a guy who's not even an option, but he's hurt. And so basically for the loophole reasons, the formality would be, oh, well, we need him, and they could use a position player too, but, oh yeah, we need rushing. And so he's replacing Dustin May or, whoever it is on the roster for that purpose. So it didn't mean specifically actually replacing him on the roster. One other comment that I want to address really quick before we jump into the definitions. Mark says that he's heard that the Dodgers are just going to put Heyward through waivers and then re-sign him when rosters expand. I mean, it's a possibility. It doesn't seem likely to me at all. For me, I feel like the reason the Dodgers did it right now was so that Jason Heyward has time to maybe catch on with a team that he has a better chance of making a postseason roster with. So the most respectful way to treat him in this situation was to do it now when he actually still has options to play somewhere else this year. But jumping into the point of this segment, we sent out a text to our insiders group with the news that Jason Heyward had been DFA'd, and I realized that there are a lot of people who don't really know what that means. I didn't help by the fact that I originally typed he had been DDA'd because I was doing it without my reading glasses on. I was at an anniversary lunch with my wife when I sent out the alert. But once they said DFA'd, there's still people who don't totally know what that means. DFA'd means designated for assignment. And when a guy is designated for assignment, the team then has a week. It used to be 10 days. Now it's a week to either trade him or put him on waivers. And because we are past the trade deadline, the trading him option is no longer an option. So with Heyward being DFA'd, he will now be put on waivers. There are two different kinds of waivers. There is outright waivers and release waivers. Release waivers means both of them are treated the same way. You go on the waiver wire. Every team looks every day. Okay, who's on the waiver wire? And if you claim a guy, boom, you've got him. If multiple teams claim him, the team with the worst record gets him. But chances are nobody will claim Heyward off waivers because then they would have to pay him the $1.5 million, $2 million, whatever he's owed for the rest of the season. Whereas if they wait until he clears waivers, then he becomes a free agent and they sign him for the prorated minimum salary. So it's the difference between paying him $1.5 million or paying him $150,000 or whatever. So he'll probably clear waivers and then he will be released. The other kind of waivers is outright waivers, which doesn't really apply to him because he's a veteran. Outright waivers are when you have a guy like, for example, Brent Honeywell last week, who you want to get off the 40-man roster. When you DFA a guy, he is immediately off the roster, off the active roster, off the 40-man roster. You can replace him. And then you've got those 7 days to trade him or put him through waivers. And with Honeywell, they put him on outright waivers. He cleared waivers. None of the other 29 teams claimed him. And then the Dodgers were able to outright him, send him outright to AAA. Players with more than 5 years of service time can refuse being outrighted. Players who've been outrighted off the 40-man roster in the past at least once can refuse being outrighted. I don't know. I know that Honeywell doesn't have the service time. I don't know enough about his past to know if he had ever been outrighted before, but he did. He is in AAA now, so either he couldn't refuse the assignment or he chose not to. But either way, he's now been outrighted to AAA, so he's off the 40-man roster, but still in the organization. That won't apply to Heyward here. Heyward will be released. If he clears waivers, he'll be released. If he doesn't clear waivers, then the Dodgers save a couple $1 million and Heyward is automatically on the active roster of the team that claimed him. And so, I guess stranger things have happened. When we're talking about sending a guy to the minor leagues, options comes up a lot. They optioned him. What that means is once you're on the 40-man roster, if you're not in the big leagues, you have to be optioned to the minor leagues. And if you spend 20 days in the minors after you're sent down, then it officially counts as one of your option years. Every player gets 3 option years. So when you hear the phrase, oh, does he have options available? That means, does he have option years left? And so you use 1 option year per year. A new thing in the recent CBA is that a player can only be optioned 5 times in one season. We're seeing the Dodgers come up close to that with Landon Knack. And so Landon Knack, he's on the 40-man roster. And when they call him up from the minors, it's called being recalled. When they send him down, it's called being optioned. If you have a guy, if they wanted to call Brent Honeywell back up, now that he's not on the 40-man roster anymore, it wouldn't be called being recalled. It would be called, we'd say he was selected, meaning called up from off the 40-man roster, which means he's added to the 40-man roster and the active roster. They would have to make room for him. So that you'll hear the difference between selected and recalled. It's the same move from AAA to the big leagues. It's just a question of whether the guy was on the 40-man roster at the time he was called up or not. And being optioned or outrighted, it's the same move going from the big leagues to the minors. The question is he being removed from the 40-man roster or not? A guy being optioned stays on the 40-man roster. A guy being outrighted because he cleared through waivers is off the 40-man roster but stays in the organization. None of which applies to Jason Heyward, who will be on release waivers and will either be claimed or be released, and then he will be free to sign with any team, including, theoretically, the Dodgers. It's happened before. We saw it just last week. The Padres released Carl Edwards Jr., and then they re-signed him to a minor league contract. But I don't think that's likely with Heyward. I assume that if he had a chance to make the postseason roster, he would still be on the active roster right now, and they would have, put Rojas on the IL or figured out some way to keep Heyward around.
Yeah, so there you go. That is, the easy way, I guess, of explaining it. There's obviously little nooks and crannies and everything, but that's the easiest way to kind of look at it. So DFA does not mean to send to the minors. It means that you're getting them off the roster completely in most senses. So
yeah. And there's a lot of sentiment in the chat about this sucks for Jason Heyward, and I totally agree. I don't think there's any Dodger fan who doesn't love and respect Jason Heyward. And that's, I'm sure this was a hard conversation for Dave Roberts to have. Especially, they did it literally 24 hours after his game-winning home run. They pulled him in last night and said, "Hey, guess what? We're cutting you." And the respect everybody has for Heyward makes it hard. And luckily everybody understands that baseball's a business. Freddie Freeman understands. I made a joke earlier. Freddie Freeman had the power literally in his right middle finger to open up a roster spot for his buddy. Freeman could have said, my finger hurts too much, I need to go on the IL, and they could have kept Heyward, but Freeman knows what's best for the Dodgers is Freeman playing. And, it's a business that everybody understands and doesn't make it easier, but it is I guess Mike has a good way of saying it. Heyward's a good dude, not a good enough player. And yeah, that's basically what it boils down to. Heyward didn't have a spot on this team for the postseason, so they let him go. And it's a bummer, and we'll always have the last 2 years. And I guess that's all there is to say about that.
Yeah. The other part, and we didn't really talk about it. We had talked about like Phantom IL before. That's just us assuming Jason Heyward would want to like stay with the team and just not play. I don't know if this conversation was had. It didn't make it seem like it, but I'm sure it was one of those things where, hey, Heyward can go find. He has a few days now to go get on another team and possibly play more for a team that's fighting for the postseason or something like that. So, like, if you feel bad for Heyward in some senses, you can also feel good in the fact that the Dodgers didn't wait till September 1st and then decide to let him go, and then he would have been able to play in September, but not in October for a team that picked him up.
Yeah, the same conversation that we had about Dalton Rushing now applies to Jason Heyward. If he signs with a different team before September 1st, he is eligible to play in the postseason with them.
So. Yeah, so again, it's everyone kind of knows the deal. We can assume that Jason Heyward would want to have stuck around and been a clubhouse leader and cheerleader. Maybe, I would assume he wants to play, and this is a chance for him to go play. And maybe that's another reason for the timing of this move that also kind of, the Dodgers have done right by a few guys sometimes in the past in the sense of helping them go pick up something. So,
yep.
All right. You got anything else before we get out for the week?
Nope.
All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Make sure to check out Locked On MLB with our pal Sully over there every day talking MLB, getting you ready for the MLB postseason, wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, or hit the link in our description. Brought to you from the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, which also brings you Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube, bringing you the biggest news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world. Locked On Dodgers postcast with host Pete Fox is available on the Locked On Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel and on our audio feed after most Dodger games. You can find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff's on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vincent71. You can DM us with any questions or comments. You go beyond the podcast, become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers and get text directly from us with anything related to the Dodgers that you maybe don't have a chance to keep up with during the day or over the weekend or stuff like that. And you can get a hold of us via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. We can get your car if you're at home. Text smart device by podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you Sunday night.